Well,
We are live.
Yes.
And it's special because we are next to each
Look
other.
at this. It's one screen.
It's like, yeah, we also have and run an event tonight, a hack night.
Yeah, if you are in Berlin, you should stop watching this. Well, no, you can watch the whole thing and then immediately head to Le Wagon.
And it's in Mitte. If not, we...
It is in Mitte.
It's in Mitte.
Ah, okay. Neighborhood in Berlin, named Mitte. On the ride over here, I asked my colleagues, oh, is it in Mitte? And they're like, no. Yeah.
Where else should it be?
I think they said it was Kreuzberg. So,
oh, well,
because we're kind of close, right?
It's really close. It might be the border, but I would consider this part already being Mitte. It feels Mitte.
All right, well,
well,
a little Berlin
history, neighborhood thing. But today, like last week, we talked about Zod and how to validate or how to use validation middleware. And today we want to show what else you can do with Zod, because it is great on validation, but we can also use it in Hono apps to generate OpenAPI specs. Brad, why do I want an OpenAPI spec?
Could be a couple of reasons. There's like an asterisk here because there's definitely times when you don't want one. Main reasons, in the past at least, was like you need to communicate what your API expects and how to use it easily to like people who will use your API. So an OpenAPI spec gets you a lot of goodies for free. There are great tools out there to generate SDKs automatically for your API. Coming to mind is Speakeasy and Stainless in that space. Lots of great tools for generating docs. Swagger was the original.
I think Swagger is really well known, right?
Yeah, very well known. So you get automatically get a documentation site for your API. You don't have to write it by hand or anything like that. So that's really nice. Scalar is an up and coming, also beautiful doc sites. And well, soon Fiberplane also is going to do some stuff in this space. So the traditional reason is it makes it easier to communicate to humans what your API does and expects. The newer reason that's emerging is that large language models and agents, word of the year, they work really well with a well-documented API, which is to say, for like an AI to use your API, if you have a spec for it, then they know how to use it like a tool. So that's kind of the new reason.
I mean, it makes already a lot of sense because if you have the spec, you can already auto-generate the SDKs you mentioned, and that for LLMs being able to pick that up easier. But mainly what you say is if I want LLM or a large language model to use my application, or if I want other humans to use my endpoint. Same. I need the spec, right?
Yeah.
So, and it has become de facto a standard when it comes to good API documentation. And we have it now available in the Honc template, and I think that might be the first thing we want to show today. So let me share my screen.
So typically when you create a Honc app, it just does a standard low-touch Hono application. With the updates last Thursday, we now have an extra step when you create a new Honc app from the Create Honc App CLI. And that one will ask you if you want an OpenAPI spec.
And we are doing this now.
We are. And hopefully that downloads later. We'll see. If it doesn't, I got a trick for you.
Call it Honc out. I don't know if I have other things called Honc out already. It's like I sometimes forget to delete examples. So let's see. And there it is. The OpenAPI is back, and let's say yes.
We're going to say yes because otherwise the stream wouldn't make any sense. It turns out.
Turns out we want to talk about it. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to prime you for what you're about to see. The difference here, it's going to look a lot different than the usual templates. And there is, okay, so the whole thing about generating getting an OpenAPI spec. You can always write one by hand, but and people have for a long time, but that can get very tedious. Anytime you change your API, you have to manually update the spec. There's a risk that the spec doesn't reflect the code. So in an ideal world, you can generate your spec from your code, and that is what we are about to show. To do this with Hono, there's a couple tools at your disposal, one which we will cover with one of the creators of those tools later. but put a pin in that, because the standard one that you can also see examples of on the Hono website is with Zod, Hono, OpenAPI, which is that thing right there that's highlighted, the OpenAPI Hono. That's a different way to create an app, and you do end up writing a lot more code, but there's no way around that. There's no way.
I think when you want already, when you know already you want a well-documented endpoint is a way to start straight away. I felt when I use my vanilla app, and you know that by now, it takes some time to update your route accordingly for all the answers or responses it has. But we will have a small helper function we will also present at the end of the stream. But so let's assume you want to start from scratch. So we use the OpenAPI Hono app here, and also use that to create the app. Sorry, there is an overlay. And I think that's something that you also included a new middleware for the DB in the template. No? Was it there already?
I think it was there.
It was already there. Okay.
This is just Hono.
This is just sorry. But then here it's where it starts getting interesting. So now you know that you want to build an app with an OpenAPI spec using Zod. So you also need to define a root schema in Zod, basically.
Yeah. And so if you scroll up a little bit, for the interested reader, it's so we commented this up because it's going to look different than usual, and there's a lot more code. So what's key to understand here is these are your definitions. So what you write here gets represented in the specification, which can be used for documentation and things like that. So this is not the actual business logic.
No, we can this is also where it feels different. We define the business logic in the end, basically, right?
Yep.
We first think about the root itself. This one has no schema in there, like no data schema. It's like basically the root. But for example, if we
before we go into the more, sorry, we're going by the fly here. I want to do. Can we scroll down to where this gets connected? Because I want to show some.
The magic. The magic happens here. So here you hand in the root.
Yep.
And here is the business logic, because if we call the endpoint, we basically return the Honc from above. Okay, so
I want to live demo two things. If you change c.text to like c.json,
it will complain.
It should complain. Huh? Oh yeah. So you get a type error from what I can
see. I got it here. Yeah.
Yep. So we'll show why in a second. Now change it back to text. Hopefully the type error goes away. Good. And now, okay. So after the response string, do a comma. So there's c.text, and then your response, do a comma, and then just put like 202. So that's the status code. Yeah. That's a good way to set the status code. And again, it complains.
Yeah, because we set it to 200, right?
Yes.
So should I change it to 200?
Yeah. So change it back to a 200, and then so what I would say is if you can command click root, and that should bring us to the definition. Okay. So in this, again, this is the definition, and it's basically creates like a typed object that when we hook it up to our API, it gives us like type safety according to our API spec. So here we only defined a 200 response, which is why as soon as we return to 202, it complained.
It doesn't want it.
Likewise, we said that the only response body will be of type text/plain, and it will be a string. So as soon as we returned JSON,
also complaining.
It complained. Yeah. So I just figured we could just illustrate a little bit of like why you might also want this versus writing by hand and things like that. Okay. Continue. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. Well, I mean, I think it's good, because what we also can do is now, instead of only having like here a string or whatever, we can use the Zod schemas that we defined, for example, or that we can define also for validation input. So here, for example, we have a user schema where we can basically say how our user object should look like and what fields should be included, and how they should be evaluated, right? So we have the ID, which should be a number, the name is a string, and the email is also a string. And then if we now want to use that again in a root, we can create another root with the create user. Get user and create root. Create user comes at a different point, but here we then say that we don't hand in text or whatever. We just say we have here the error with user schemas that we want as a response, basically telling now that this endpoint will give us an array with all the users in there.
If I may, I hope
you
there. Cool. That full screen.
Okay. And then again, the business logic of that is defined again when we use the app. So that's here. Sorry, I don't like these, but where we basically then say we are getting this users from the data schema, and you might have seen this in the app before, right? So we had this in the Honc template, like querying the users from the data, but now we also make sure that the object that is returned actually is a user object. So if I would change it, I assume it will complain again, right? So if
what we could do is maybe in that db.select.
Select.
So you could
maybe just return well, no, it would be still.
You could only select like one of the fields, like name.
Is it select and then?
Does that work? I don't think that works. I think you need to so object, create an object inside select. So open curly brace. And then on the inside,
name.
Put name, and then colon dot and then schema.users.name.
Yeah, that's the way.
And if I get this wrong, then all right.
I think you got it right, but I was.
So now the type errors can be hard to read, but if you let's see here, if you scroll to the bottom, usually is when it tells you. Type name is missing the following properties: ID, email, ID and email. So in that case, our root knew that it was supposed to return a user object with ID, email, name. We were only returning name. We get a complaint. Yeah.
And that's how it continues. And what we can do now is we can also, I think that's in the application as well, we have a doc endpoint. So we can, like if we run this application now, we would also see the documentation of it, basically.
Yep.
So maybe we do that. And then the last part I think we want to demo is the function that we've implemented for Fiberplane to help people if they don't want to code like this, or maybe they have a code base already and want to open APIs back. So, but just it's again very big here.
Yeah, you can just do B. Press B.
B.
Yeah.
Oh,
that'll open your browser.
Perfect. And then we are here already.
Yep.
And then I do doc because that's
slash OpenAPI.json.
Slash.
No, not slash doc.
Did we not put it on the doc endpoint?
No, we called the doc function to generate the doc, but we serve it from slash OpenAPI.json. There's a couple of standards box where you can find templates on most OpenAPI APIs. Slash OpenAPI.json is one, and then slash doc is another.
But nice. So now we have documentation for our routes and also for our objects that we would expect as inputs.
Yep.
And that's quite cool.
And for the AI interested reader, LLMs are extremely good at reading these things. So they kind of speak this language very, very effectively. So there's also, if you don't have an OpenAPI spec, one trick we've done is just putting your code base into an LLM and asking it to generate one. Also, you can get a summary of the API through an LLM very, very easily by just pasting in the spec. Not that you need to, but it's fun to try.
Cool. Did I stop the app? Yeah. I didn't stop the application, but it stopped. Or am I? Something stopped it. No.
Okay. That was just a different.
It's a different browser, yeah. Okay, cool. One thing, let's go back to my vanilla application. It's my favorite application by now. And it's really messy because I try to include a lot of things, but also removing stuff, zooming in. So this wonderful application has no APIs back, and I really don't want to build it. So our coworker, Lorena, has actually implemented a very handy thing from the Fiberplane Hono package, and we come to our create Fiberplane middleware next week. But what is really nice here is we also have this create OpenAPI spec, and it basically is an easy way to get an OpenAPI spec if you don't want to change stuff straight away.
Yeah.
And I'm using it basically here to create an OpenAPI spec.
So a caveat here, it's not a full spec. So this is it will help you list all of your routes, which can be good just for like knowing the surface area of your API. But it does not go so far as to say like this route expects this payload with these fields. So it's like a very loosey-goosey, I believe is the term we like at Honc Industries. It's a loosey-goosey spec that just kind of like shows what's possible in the broadest sense.
And then you can use it in the Fiberplane middleware. But I think that's something we can cover next week. And I think there we see the difference, basically, also what you get with this one and what you get with a full API. But that's a cliffhanger for next week.
Yep. So just to break down what's happening right here, we're just creating that same endpoint that serves a JSON document that describes the OpenAPI spec. And we can also, we can look at it.
We can run it.
Yeah.
Sorry that no cliffhanger.
B.
Woo. Oh, no, B was not.
B should work.
Command B? No.
No.
Well.
It should be the same one.
Should be the same one. And now we have JSON.
OpenAPI.
OpenAPI. Here we go.
Cool.
But we see already, we don't like, I mean, I know my vanilla application by now, it has a vanilla object, but this, for example, is not represented here.
Yeah.
We just have the endpoints. Also, I know there are some different response codes that would give me.
Hello.
So it's not only a 200, but you see the level is already, it's more high level, I would say, from what you get as a description.
Yeah, definitely.
But still, maybe helpful.
Insofar as it like gives you a data structure that describes the routes in your app, it's good. And then there's also we'll get to it later.
We get to it later.
Lots of cliffhanger.
Cliffhanger, yeah. This might be especially handy if you join us next week, where we can show you what we've been building, or what you've been building mainly with the team.
Yeah.
When creating our middleware that we have for Hono now.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm going to be honest, I already snuck it into the OpenAPI templates.
Okay.
It's already there.
It's already there. Okay.
So if you're curious.
You can check it out already. That's fair. And with that,
Infinite mirror.
Sharing.
Hello again. Oh wait.
Or maybe I was out of screen.
I think we enjoyed this lovely view of leaves.
That's true. And next week we will be again back in Amsterdam, I guess.
Yes. Well, I will be.
Yeah.
Will you?
I think I might be in Amsterdam.
Whoa! Another in-person one.
Another in-person too, maybe at one screen.
So it leaves two possibilities, which is we're both humans that exist in the world, or we're both AI avatars, and then we finally figured out the technology to put us both on the same screen. Either of those things could be true. Stay tuned next week.
Stay tuned, we'll find
Another
out.
cliffhanger.